Welcome to the Intercourse Show. I'm your host, Mr. B. Today we have a very exciting show for you. We are responding to the speech made by President Zelensky at the Davos World Economic Forum. Apparently, Zelensky goes in on all the European countries in NATO. I guess he is frustrated with them, maybe for the support or lack thereof. With regards to the war he's having with Russia. So let's jump right into this and see what he had to say. Let's see.
Thank you very much. Dear friends, everyone remembers the great American film Groundhog Day with Bill Murray and Andy McDowell. Yes, but no one would want to live like that, repeating the same thing for weeks, months, and of course for years. And yet, that's exactly how we live now. And it's our life. And every forum like this one proves it. Just last year, here in Davos, I ended my speech with the words, Europe needs to know how to defend itself. A year has passed and nothing has changed. We are still in a situation where I must say the same words, but why? The answer is not just about the threats that exist or may appear. Each year brings something new for Europe and for the world. Everyone turned attention to Greenland. And it's clear most leaders simply are not sure what to do about it. And it seems like everyone is just waiting for America to cool down on this topic, hoping it will pass away. But what if will not? What then? There was so much talk about the protests in Iran, but they drowned in blood. The world has not helped enough the Iranian people, and it's true. It has stood aside in Europe holidays. By the time politicians came back to work and started forming a position, the Ayatollah has already killed thousands. And what will Iran become after this bloodshed? If the regime survives, it sends a clear signal to every bully, kill enough people and you stay in power. Who in Europe needs that message to become a reality? And yet Europe hasn't even tried to build its own response. Let's look at the Western Hemisphere. President Trump led an operation in Venezuela and Maduro was arrested. And there were different opinions about it. But the fact remains Maduro is on trial in New York. Sorry, but Putin is not on trial. And this is the fourth year of the biggest war in Europe since World War II. And the man who started it is not only free, he is still fighting for his frozen money in Europe. And you know what? He is having some success, it's true. It's Putin who's trying to decide how the frozen Russian assets should be used, not those who have the power to punish him for this war. Thankfully, the EU decided to freeze Russian assets indefinitely, and I'm grateful for that. Thanks, Ursula, thanks, Antonio, and all the leaders who helped. But when the time came to use those assets to defend against Russian aggression, the decision was blocked. Putin managed to stop Europe, unfortunately. Next point. Because of the America's position, people are now avoiding the topic of the International Criminal Court. And that's understandable. It's American historical position. But at the same time, there is still no real progress on establishing a special tribunal for Russian aggression against Ukraine, against the Ukrainian people. And we have an agreement, it's true. Many meetings with staff and actual work happening inside. What's missing? Time or political will. Too often in Europe, something else is always more urgent than justice. Right now, we are working actively with partners on security guarantees, and I'm grateful for that, but those are for after the war ends. Once the ceasefire begins, there will be contingents and joint patrols and partner flags on Ukrainian soil. And that is very good step and the right signal that UK and France are ready to actually commit their forces on the ground. And there is already a first agreement on that. Thank you, Keir, thanks, Emmanuel, and all the leaders in our coalition. And we are doing everything to make sure that our coalition of the willing truly becomes a coalition of action. And again, everyone is very positive, but, always but the backstop of President Trump is needed. And again, no security guarantees work without the US. But what about the ceasefire itself? Who can help make it happen? Europe loves to discuss the future, but avoids taking action today, action that defines what kind of future we will have. That is the problem. Why can't President Trump stop tankers from the Strait of Fleet and seize oil, but Europe doesn't? Russian oil is being transported right along European shores. That oil funds the war against Ukraine. That oil helps destabilize Europe. So Russian oil must be stopped and confiscated and sold for Europe's benefit. Why not? If Putin has no money, there is no war for Europe. If Europe has money, then it can protect its people. Right now, those tankers are making money for Putin, and that means Russia continues to push its sick agenda. Next point. I've said it before and I'll repeat it again. Europe needs united armed forces that can truly defend Europe. Today, Europe relies only on the belief that if danger comes, NATO will act. But no one has really seen the alliance in action. If Putin decides to take Lithuania or strike Poland, who will respond? Who will respond? Right now, NATO exists thanks to belief that the United States will act, that it will not stand aside and will help. But what if it doesn't? Believe me, this question is everywhere in the minds of every European leader, and some try to get closer to President, acting, investing in weapons production and etc., building partnerships, getting public support for higher defense spending. But let's remember, until America pressured Europe to spend more on defense, most countries were not even trying to reach 5% of GDP, the minimum needed to ensure security. Europe needs to know how to defend itself. And if you send 30 or 40 soldiers to Greenland, what is that for? What message does it send? What's the message to Putin, to China? And even more importantly, what message does it send to Denmark? The most important, your close ally. You either declare that European bases will protect the region from Russia and China and establish those bases, or you risk not being taken seriously because 30 or 40 soldiers will not protect anything. And we know what to do. If Russian warships are sailing freely around Greenland, Ukraine can help. We have the expertise and weapons to ensure not one of those ships remains. They can sink near Greenland just as they do near Crimea. No problem, we have the tools and we have people. For us, the sea is not the first line of defense, so we can take actions and we know how to fight there if we were asked and if Ukraine were in NATO. But we are not. We would solve this problem with the Russian ships. As for Iran, everyone is waiting to see what America will do. And the world offers nothing, Europe offers nothing, and doesn't not want to enter this issue as a supporter of the Iranian people and the democracy they need. But when you refuse to help the people fighting for freedom, the consequences return, and they are always negative. Belarus in 2020 is the example. No one helped their people, and now Russian or ethnic missiles are deployed in Belarus within range of most European capitals. That would not have happened if the Belarusian people had won in 2020. And we have told our European partners multiple times, act now against those missiles in Belarus. Missiles are never just decoration, but Europe still remains in Greenland mode. Maybe someday someone will do something. The issue of Russian oil is the same. It's good that many sanctions exist. Russian oil is getting cheaper, but the flow has not stopped. And Russian companies that fund Putin's war machine are still working. And that will not change. That will not change without more sanctions. And we are grateful for all the pressure put on the aggressor. But let's be honest. Europe must do more so its sanctions block enemies as effectively as American sanctions. Why is that important? Because if Europe is not seen as a global force, if its actions don't scare bad actors, then Europe will always be reacting, catching up with new dangers and attacks. We all see that the forces trying to destroy Europe do not waste a single day. They operate freely, even operate inside Europe. Every victor who lives off European money while trying to sell out European interests deserves a smack upside the head. And if he feels comfortable in Moscow, it doesn't mean we should let European capitals become little Moscows. We must remember what separates Russia from all of us. The most fundamental line of conflict between Russia and Ukraine and all of Europe is this: Russia fights to devalue people, to make sure that when dictators want to destroy someone, they can. But they must lose power, not gain it. For example, Russia's missiles are produced only because there are ways to bypass sanctions. It's true. Everyone sees how Russia tries to freeze Ukrainians. Now, our people, Ukrainians to death at minus 20 degrees Celsius. But Russia couldn't build any ballistic or cruise missiles without critical components from other countries. And it's not just China. Too often people hide behind the excuse that China helps Russia. Yes, it does. But not only China. Russia gets components from companies in Europe, the United States, and Taiwan. Right now, many are investing in stability around Taiwan to avoid war. But can Taiwanese companies stop contributing electronics to Russia's war? Europe says almost nothing. America says nothing. and Putin makes missiles. And I thank every country, of course, and every company that helps Ukraine repair its energy system. This is crucial. Thank you to all who support the Pearl program, helping us buy Patriot missiles. But wouldn't it be cheaper and easier to just cut Russia off from the components it needs for missiles production, or even destroy the factories making them? Last year, most of the time was spent talking about long-range weapons for Ukraine. And everybody said that the solution was within range. Now, no one is even talking about it. But Russian missiles and Shaheeds are still here. And we still have the coordinates of the factories where they are made. Today, they target Ukraine. Tomorrow, it could be any NATO country. And here in Europe, we are advised not to mention tomahawks, to the Americans, not to spoil the mood. And we are told not to bring up Taurus missiles. When the subject is Turkey, diplomats say don't offend Greece. When it's Greece, they say be careful with Turkey. In Europe, there are endless internal arguments and things left unsaid that stop Europe from uniting and speaking honestly enough to find real solutions. And too often, Europeans turn against each other, leaders, parties, movements, and communities, instead of standing together to stop Russia, which brings the same destruction to everyone. Instead of becoming a truly global power, Europe remains a beautiful but fragmented kaleidoscope of small and middle powers. Instead of taking the lead in defending freedom worldwide, especially when America's focus shifts elsewhere, Europe looks lost, trying to convince the US president to change. But he will not change. President Trump loves who he is, and he says he loves Europe, but he will not listen to this kind of Europe. One of the biggest problems in today's Europe, though it's not often talked about, is the mindset. Some European leaders are from Europe, but not always for Europe. And Europe still feels more like a geography, history, a tradition, not a real political force, not a great power. Some Europeans are really strong, it's true. But many say we must stand strong, and they always want someone else to tell them how long they need to stand strong, preferably until the next election. But that's not how great power works, to my mind. Leaders say we must defend European interests, but they hope someone else will do it for them. And speaking of values, they often mean valueless. They are all like, we need something to replace the old world order with. But where is the line of leaders who are ready to act? Act now, on land, in the air, at the sea, to build a new global order. You can't build the new world order out of words. Only actions create real order. Today, America has launched the Board of Peace. Ukraine was invited, so was Russia, Belarus, though the war hasn't stopped. And there is not even a ceasefire. And I have seen who joined. Everyone had their reasons. But here is the thing. Europe hasn't even formed a united position on the American idea. Maybe tonight, when the European Council meets, they will decide something. But the documents were already signed this morning, and tonight they might also finally decide something on Greenland. But last night, Mark Rutte had spoken to President Trump. Thank you, Mark, for your productiveness. America is already changing its position, but nobody knows exactly how. So things move faster than we. Things move faster than Europe. And how can Europe keep up? Dear friends, we should not degrade ourselves to secondary roles, not when we have a chance to be a great power together. We should not accept that Europe is just a salad of small and middle powers seasoned with enemies of Europe. When united, we are truly invincible. And Europe can and must be a global force, not one that reacts late, but one that defines the future. That would help everyone from the Middle East to every other region in the world. That would help Europe itself, because the challenges we face now are challenges to the European way of life, where people matter, where nations matter. Europe can help build a better world. Europe must build a better world, and a world without war, of course. But for that, Europe needs strength. For that, we must act together and act in time. And most of all, we must have the courage to act. And we are actively working to reach solutions, real solutions. Today, we met with President Trump, and our teams are working almost every day. It's not simple. The documents aimed at ending this war are nearly ready, and that really matters. Ukraine is working with full honesty and determination, and that brings results. And Russia must become ready to finish this war, to stop this aggression, Russian war against us. So the pressure must be strong enough, and the support for Ukraine must grow even stronger. Our previous meetings with President of the United States brought us air defense missiles, and thanks Europeans, they helped also. And today we also spoke about the protecting the skies, which means protecting lives, of course. And I hope America will continue to stand with us. And Europe must be strong. And Ukraine is ready to help with anything needed to guarantee peace and prevent destruction. We are ready to help others become stronger than they are now. We are ready to be part of a Europe that truly matters, a Europe of real power, great power. Today, we need that power to protect our own independence. But you need Ukraine's independence too, because tomorrow you may have to defend your way of life. And when Ukraine is with you, no one will wipe their feet on you. And you will always have a way to act, and act in time. This is very important. Act in time. Dear friends, today is one of the last days of Davos, though definitely not the last Davos, of course. And everyone agrees on that. And many people believe that somehow things will work out on their own. But we cannot rely on somehow. For real security, faith is not enough. Faith in a partner, in a lucky turn of events. No intellectual discussions are capable of stopping wars. We need action. World order comes from action, and we just need the courage to act. Without action now, there is no tomorrow. Let's end this Groundhog Day. And yes, it's possible. Thank you. Slava Ukraini.
Okay, that was President Zelensky speaking at the World Economic Forum, where he seems to be airing a little bit of his grievances and frustrations. Now, I understand where he's coming from. He's been in a war for over 4 years, a country that's way bigger than him, that has a lot more weapons, that really is a proven battle tested country with a leader of strong resolve. And he tried to rally the troops around, um, to overpower the Russian president, Vladimir Putin. Unfortunately, he has not been successful. Now, I don't know what it is about this guy. He does not rub me the right way because I feel like he doesn't understand politics. Now, Zelensky's background's in acting. He was an actor. And, apparently some people in high places saw potential in him being a leader, and he was installed as the leader of Ukraine when the Obama administration overthrew the prior government. And he's really kind of a guy who's, not really reading the room. I mean, from understanding that, this was never a fight that he was ever going to win, to be totally honest with you. Obviously, I think his push was to try to get everyone to give him security guarantees, to get him to join NATO so that they can intimidate Russia, and Russia, have resolve. Those guys said, listen, we don't care how long it's going to take, but we're going to grind you down until you tap out. And that's their position. They are constantly attacking, Ukraine. And unfortunately, this man seems to not get the picture. He seems to continue to want to escalate the issue. Now, having said all that, let me switch over here. Having said all that, I don't think he's really paying attention to the optics, if I'm being totally honest. I think the one thing he's missed out on is the optics. The optics here says that it's probably not good for the only people left helping you, i.e. the NATO countries in Europe, to go on a globalized forum and to try to grandstand, almost to shame the people that are remaining in your corner. I just don't see how that is a good strategic thing to do when trying to rally the troops to hang in there with you to help you. I didn't hear a man who's been humbled by his loss, who's saying, look, we want to come to the table. We want peace. I heard a little bit of defiance. I heard a bit of flippant attitude, almost entitled. I heard a lot of bossiness, sass, really, like him kind of wagging the finger inside of the people that he needs, in the faces of the people he needs to help him. And to me, that doesn't make sense. And I can see why he rubs a lot of people the wrong way. I don't think Trump is a big fan of this guy. Now, he'll help him out of obligation, but Trump is not going out of his way to ensure that this guy wins a war. Let's be honest, right? And really and truly, if you're looking at it, he doesn't give off the impression of a person who is moving in good faith. I just feel like there's a lot of underhanded things being done. Now, unfortunately, I feel like he was misled by the Europeans into believing that this little backdoor tactics to get the United States involved and secure him security guarantees and to fund the war. Obviously, they did that when Joe Biden was in office, a guy who was in his old years, a bit senile, wasn't really there. So they could run a lot of things under the table and siphon as much money as possible from the US. But now when you have a guy like Trump, who's got his own agenda, this war is a distraction for Trump, not so much something he cares to deal with. So I would think that it would behoove this guy to really kind of get on the side of Trump, get the thing ended as fast as possible so he could hopefully retain his position as the leader of that country and move on. pick your battles. Instead, he continues to, talk out of turn and be flippant and come across as entitled. And I don't think it translates well. I mean, I'm not, by no stretch of the imagination, I have no dog in this fight here. But if I'm looking at it, I just feel like if I was a European leader who was supporting this guy, how would I feel about him trying to grandstand me on a globalized forum, almost to shame me into believing that we're not doing enough to help him? We done gave him money. We're standing behind him. We're giving him weapons. We're helping him. How is it that this guy has the audacity to kind of talk crazy to me? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I could just be a little sensitive, but I just feel like his tone is one of not someone who's grateful for the help he received, but one of like he's got a moral high ground to kind of shame these guys into doing more, to hold Putin, take him to justice. NATO doesn't have the power to take Putin to justice. Like, let's be serious. The guy's got thousands of nuclear weapons. None of them want to get nuked. They don't want to do that. Like, they wouldn't do that, to be honest with you. And that's why they're kind of hiding behind the U.S., because we got the same amount of nuclear weapons, if not more. So now, which is why we're a central figure in this whole process, right? But to be totally honest, like, this is just not a good look. I don't know. I'm watching this and thinking to myself, this guy he doesn't read the room well. But what do you guys think? I welcome your voice. If you're not already a subscribed member of the channel, I ask that you like and subscribe and you let your voice be heard. Obviously I'm praying that there's peace and that somehow, some way these guys work it out, because they are losing a lot of people. And, as a Christian, I would rather see peace in the area so that people can live and go about their lives. But, egos get in the way, and sometimes people refuse to humble themselves and just to concede whenever it's obvious that the battle's lost. So that being said, I welcome you guys to lend your voice to the conversation. And until we speak again, be well. God bless you all.